as a writer. And that's what I'd always been. I even got my place as a writer, so I am a terrible failure because the second I got to university, I stopped writing. And yeah, it happens. Yeah, no, it does. It happens. Years later, I met my tutor, and I told her this with sort of great shame, and she was very flippant and said, "Oh, that's very, very usual." So awful, isn't it? Confidence, yeah, they just like cut me. Anyway, I made some friends, like you do, and a lot of the friends that I made happened to be making theatre, in which I have very little interest. I never did. But they were making plays, and there was no cinema. This was Cambridge University in England, and at that stage there was no cinema. I think there now is. In fact, I had a very bittersweet moment when I was asked to go and open the film course there, and I felt so torn between happy and bitter. Because had it been opened in my time, I would have done film studies, and I would be a film critic probably now. I don't know, but I mean, I was really interested in cinema always, not interested in theatre, not particularly interested in acting, and very interested in writing, so I don't know, something might have come out in the wash. But my friends who were making plays, and they asked me to kind of join them, and I liked them. I liked hanging out with them, so I directed a play first, and then I started performing in their plays. And I just went where the crack was, you know, I liked those people, and so I hung out with them. But I never thought of doing it after university. And then an agent met me and said, if you want to do it afterwards, I don't know, you're that sort of boring, sort of, and I just fell into it. And I feel a little ashamed to say this, because I know that there are so many people who long to be actors, and they are desperate to be able to say that an agent came to see them and asked to sign them. And I'm sorry, I apologize for my good fortune, but I had that good fortune. I didn't want it, and this is the other thing about life. Sometimes you get somebody else's great good fortune, and you have to kind of recycle it for your own purposes. And I started performing in the theatre, learned nice and early what I did not want to do. Worked with the Royal Shakespeare Company, for example, discovered that I absolutely didn't want to do that. But that time, I don't know, it wasn't me. And I was going to stop completely. And then I was asked to go and meet Derek Jarman. And at that time, and this really is, we're going back to the 13th century here, there wasn't really, there was no independent cinema in the UK, really. What there was, let me paint you a picture. There was Hollywood, but that was over the ocean, that was America. There was Europe, which was over another piece of water, and that was France and Germany, and Italy, and Spain. Very interesting, but they had their own ways of funding their film, and I was living in London, we were very London-centric, and there were a few international filmmakers, but they were very kind of proper professionals, like, believe it or not, David Lean was still making films. And then you had people like Merchant Ivory, who were making costume dramas. And I was absolutely certain that I didn't want to get drawn into that. But a lot of people were. And then there was a very, very, very active and brilliant television culture at the time. There were only 4 channels, and the BBC were amazing, and they did a lot of very amazing series and things, but a lot of actors were doing that. But independent cinema, at the time, hadn't really sort of, it was before Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein came over, and he kind of, in many ways, kind of activated a different way of filmmaking in the UK, which was a bit of a dogleg and went up a sort of blind alley in a way. But anyway, there was one sort of stall in the fairground that made what I would call cultural film, and that was the British Film Institute. And they made films with people like Peter Greenaway, Derek Jarman, Sally Potter, Ron Peck, and they did this really beautiful thing. They would say, okay, Derek, I'll give you a little bit of money, like £200,000, which isn't very much, but I will support your next 5 films. I want your voice, I want to support you. It's not this project, it's you. And that was really the place. And Derek was flying a very particular flag at that time. He was, for those of you who don't know Derek Jarman's work, please seek it out. There was a time when I would mention his name in scenarios like this and people hadn't heard of him. Recently, there's been all sorts of new efforts to make his work more visible. He was is an extraordinary example of absolutely self-determining, independent with a small I don't mean a capital I. He was completely unco-opted. He was a gay activist, writer, gardener, painter, filmmaker, amazing person, and was one of the first people to come out publicly in 1989 and say that he had HIV and died of AIDS in '94. Yeah, he's the real deal. And yeah, in 1985 he was making Caravaggio, and he wanted to meet me, and that was just a very simple sort of meet cute. I went to meet him and we just adored each other, and I was with him until he died, basically, 9 years later. Yeah. It is my honor, this is my community we're talking about, and I really meant it when I said before that I think that it's meaningful when I say it's my community. Not just because I was like some sort of babe in the wood who was, you know, at a young age discovered by some wonderful queer people and taken under their wing. It's not just that, although it is a lot to do with that. I mean, when I started working with Derek and living alongside him and our world, and it was our world, it was a natural home for me and is still my natural home. So I really feel that it's my community, but I didn't feel adopted, if you like. I really feel that it was always a tribe I was looking for, because it's about flexibility, and it's about fantasy, and it's about dreaming as well. So, yeah, it would be absurd and inaccurate and unthinkable for me not to authentically represent that community.